The philosophy of the Upanishads. The authors, their theme, intellect versus intuition, Atman, Brahman, their identity, a description of God, salvation, influence of the Upanishads, Emerson on Brahma. In the whole world, said Schopenhauer, there is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of the Upanishads. It has been the solace of my life. It will be the solace of my death. Here, excepting the moral fragments of Ptahhotep, are the oldest extant philosophy and psychology of our race. The surprisingly subtle and patient effort of man to understand the mind and the world and their relations. The Upanishads are as old as Homer and as modern as Kant. The word is composed of upa, near, and shad, to sit. From sitting near the teacher, the term came to mean the secret or esoteric doctrine confided by the master to his best and favorite pupils. There are 108 of these discourses, composed by various saints and sages between 800 and 500 BC. They represent not a consistent system of philosophy, but the opinions, aperçus, and lessons of many men, in whom philosophy and religion were still fused in the attempt to understand and reverently unite with the simple and essential reality underlying the superficial multiplicity of things. They are full of absurdities and contradictions, and occasionally they anticipate all the wind of Hegelian verbiage. Sometimes they present formulas as weird as that of Tom Sawyer for curing warts. Sometimes they impress us as the profoundest thinking in the history of philosophy. We know the names of many of the authors, but we know nothing of their lives, except what they occasionally reveal in their teachings. The most vivid figures among them are Yajnavalkya, the man, and Gargi, the woman, who has the honor of being among the earliest of philosophers. Of the two, Yajnavalkya has the sharper tongue. His fellow teachers looked upon him as a dangerous innovator. His posterity made his doctrine the cornerstone of unchallengeable orthodoxy. He tells us how he tried to leave his two wives in order to become a hermit sage. In the plea of his wife Maitreyi that he should take her with him, we catch some of the intensity with which India has for thousands of years pursued religion and philosophy. Quote, "And then Yajnavalkya was about to commence another mode of life. 'Maitreyi,' said Yajnavalkya, 'lo, I am about to wander forth from this state. Let me make a final settlement for you in that Katyayani.' Then spake Maitreyi, 'If now, sir, this whole earth filled with wealth were mine, would I now therefore be immortal?' 'No, no,' said Yajnavalkya, 'of immortality there is no hope through wealth.' Then spoke Maitreyi, 'What should I do with that through which I may not be immortal?' 'What you know, sir, that indeed explain to me.'" End quote. The theme of the Upanishads is all the mystery of this unintelligible world. Whence are we born? Where do we live? And whither do we go? O ye who know Brahman, tell us at whose command we abide here. Should time, or nature, or necessity, or chance, or the elements be considered the cause? Or he who is called Purusha, the Supreme Being? India has had more than her share of men who wanted not millions, but answers to their questions. In the Maitreyi Upanishad, we read of a king abandoning his kingdom and going into the forest to practice austerities, clear his mind for understanding, and solve the riddle of the universe. After 1,000 days of the king's penances, a sage, knower of the soul, came to him. "You are one who knows its true nature," says the king. "Do you tell us?" "Choose other desires," warns the sage. But the king insists, and in a passage that must have seemed Schopenhauerian to Schopenhauer, he voices that revulsion against life, that fear of being reborn, which runs darkly through all Hindu thought. "Sir, in this ill-smelling, unsubstantial body, which is a conglomerate of bone, skin, muscle, marrow, flesh, semen, blood, mucus, tears, feces, urine, wind, bile, and phlegm, what is the good of enjoyment of desire? In this body, which is afflicted with desire, anger, covetousness, delusion, fear, despondency, envy, separation from the desirable, union with the undesirable, hunger, thirst, senility, death, disease, sorrow, and the like, what is the good of enjoyment of desires?" And we see that this whole world is decaying like these gnats, these mosquitoes, this grass, and these trees that arise and perish. Among other things, there is the drying up of great oceans, the fading away of mountain peaks, the deviation of the fixed pole star, the submergence of the earth. In this sort of cycle of existence, what is the good of enjoyment of desires? When, after man is fed upon them, there is seen repeatedly his return here to earth. The first lesson that the sages of the Upanishads teach their selected pupils is the inadequacy of the intellect. How can this feeble brain, that aches at a little calculus, ever hope to understand the complex immensity of which it is so transitory a fragment? Not that the intellect is useless. It has its modest place, and serves us well when it deals with relations and things. But how it falters before the eternal, the infinite, or the elementally real. In the presence of that silent reality which supports all appearances and wells up in all consciousness, we need some other organ of perception and understanding than these senses and this reason. Quote, "Not by learning is the Atman, or soul of the world, attained, not by genius and much knowledge of books. Let a Brahman renounce learning and become as a child. Let him not seek after many words, for that is mere weariness of tongue." End quote. The highest understanding, as Spinoza was to say, is direct perception, immediate insight. It is, as Bergson was to say, intuition, the inward seeing of the mind that has deliberately closed, as far as it can, the portals of external sense. Quote, "The self-evident Brahman pierced the openings of the senses so that they turned outwards. Therefore man looks outward, not inward into himself. Some wise man, however, with his eyes closed and wishing for immortality, saw the self behind." End quote. If, on looking inward, a man finds nothing at all, that might only prove the accuracy of his introspection. For no man need expect to find the eternal in himself if he is lost in the particular and the ephemeral. Before that inner reality can be felt, one has to wash away from himself all evil doing and thinking, all turbulence of body and soul. For a fortnight, one must fast, drinking only water. Then the mind, so to speak, is starved into tranquility and silence. The senses are cleansed and stilled. The spirit is left at peace to feel itself in that great ocean of soul of which it is a part. At last the individual ceases to be, and unity and reality appear. For it is not the individual self which the seer sees in this pure inward seeing. That individual self is but a series of brain or mental states. It is merely the body seen from within. What the seeker seeks is Atman, the self of all selves, the soul of all souls, the immaterial, formless absolute in which we bathe ourselves when we forget ourselves. The derivation of the word Atman is uncertain. Apparently, in the Rig Veda, it originally meant breath, like the Latin spiritus, then vital essence, then soul. This then is the first step in the secret doctrine, that the essence of our own self is not the body or the mind, or the individual ego, but the silent and formless depth of being within us, Atman. The second step is Brahman, the one pervading, neuter, impersonal, all-embracing, underlying, intangible essence of the world, the real of the real, the unborn soul, undecaying, undying. The soul of all things as Atman is the soul of all souls, the one force that stands behind, beneath, and above all forces and all gods. Note that Brahman is neuter. The Hindu thinkers are the least anthropomorphic of all religious philosophers. Even in the later hymns of the Rig Veda, the Supreme Being is indifferently referred to as he or it, to show that it is above sex. Quote, Then Vigdagda Sakalya questioned him, How many gods are there, Yajnavalkya? He answered, As many as are mentioned in the hymn to all the gods, namely 303 and 3003. Yes, but just how many gods are there, Yajnavalkya? 33. Yes, but just how many gods are there, Yajnavalkya? 6. Yes, but just how many gods are there, Yajnavalkya? 2. Yes, but just how many gods are there, Yajnavalkya? 1.5. Yes, but just how many gods are there, Yajnavalkya? 1. The third step is the most important of all. Atman and Brahman are one. The non-individual soul, or force within us, is identical with the impersonal soul of the world. The Upanishads burn this doctrine into the pupil's mind with untiring, tiring repetition. Behind all forms, the subjective and objective reality are one. We, in our de-individualized reality, and God as the essence of all things, are one. A teacher expresses it in a famous parable. Bring hither a fig from there. Here it is, sir. Divide it. It is divided, sir. What do you see there? These rather fine seeds, sir. Of these, please divide one. It is divided, sir. What do you see there? Nothing at all, sir. Verily, my dear one, that finest essence which you do not perceive. Verily, from that finest essence, this great tree thus arises. Believe me, my dear one, that which is the finest essence, this whole world has that as its soul. That is reality. That is Atman. Tatvamasi. That art thou, Shvetaketsu. Do you, sir, cause me to understand even more? So be it, my dear one. This almost Hegelian dialectic of Atman, Brahman, and their synthesis is the essence of the Upanishads. Many other lessons are taught here, but they are subordinate. We find already in these discourses the belief in transmigration and the longing for release, moksha, from this heavy chain of reincarnations. It occurs first in the Satapatha Upanishad, where repeated births and deaths are viewed as a punishment inflicted by the gods for evil living. Most primitive tribes believe that the soul can pass from a man to an animal and vice versa. Probably this idea became, in the pre-Aryan inhabitants of India, the basis of the Transmigration Creed. Yajnavalkya answers Janaka, king of the Vedas, how rebirth can be avoided. He answers by expounding yoga. Through the ascetic elimination of all personal desires, one may cease to be an individual fragment, unite himself in supreme bliss with the soul of the world, and so escape rebirth. Whereupon the king, metaphysically overcome, says, "I will give you, noble soul, the Vedas and myself also to be your slave." It is an abstruse heaven, however, that Yajnavalkya promises the devotee, for in it there will be no individual consciousness. There will only be absorption into being, the reunion of the temporarily separated part with the whole. Quote, "As flowing rivers disappear in the sea, losing their name and form, thus a wise man, freed from name and form, goes to the divine person who is beyond all." End quote. Such a theory of life and death may not please Western man, whose religion is as permeated with individualism as are his political and economic institutions. But it has satisfied the philosophical Hindu mind with astonishing continuity. We shall find this philosophy of the Upanishads, this monistic theology, this mystic and impersonal immortality, dominating Hindu thought from Buddha to Gandhi, from Yajnavalkya to Tagore. To our own day, the Upanishads have remained to India what the New Testament has been to Christendom. A noble creed occasionally practiced and generally revered. Even in Europe and America, this wistful theosophy has won millions upon millions of followers, from lonely women and tired men to Schopenhauer and Emerson. Who would have thought that the great American philosopher of individualism would give perfect poetic expression to the Hindu conviction that individuality is a delusion? Brahma. If the red slayer thinks he slays, or if the slain thinks he is slain, they know not well the subtle ways I keep and pass and turn again. Far or forgot to me is near. Shadow and sunlight are the same. The vanished gods to me appear, and one to me are shame and fame. They reckon ill who leave me out. When me they fly, I am the wings. I am the doubter and the doubt, and I the hymn the Brahman sings.